What's up, manifestors? Welcome back to another episode. Just a reminder that you have the power to create worlds inside you. You're worthy, you're exactly where you need to be, and you're loved beyond comprehension. Let's get on with the show. You're listening to The Vibe with me, your host, Kirsty Jane Aston, your home of all things ascension, spirituality, and vibrational wellness. Thank you for joining me, divine being. Much love, appreciation, and namaste. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Vibe. If you are a returning listener, then thank you so much for coming back. And if you are a new listener, then I really appreciate you being here. So today, in today's episode, I thought we would talk about the present moment, living in the present, and what it actually does mean for us day to day. This is inspired by a conversation that I was having the other day with one of my soul sisters. And since we haven't really been able to see each other very often, and we are really close, we have actually just taken to having really long FaceTime sessions, which has been really nice. And leading on from one of my previous episodes, obviously talking about the whole technology thing, technology is a great way for us to be able to connect with people, especially when we are at a distance. So we were having one of these conversations the other day, and she did actually bring up something that was really resonating with me at the time, and I kind of took that as a sign that that is what we should be talking about. So what she said is that both of us have had a lot of interesting twists and turns on our journeys, and one of the things that we do speak about quite a lot is how we've really learned to try and live in the present moment and how important that actually is and what it actually means. And she actually said a really good example, which I'll now tell you. She said that the other day she was just in her house and she was making a coffee like she does every single day, multiple times a day. And aside from being aware, obviously, that she was making a coffee and she was in her kitchen, she said that she pulled out the sugar jar, which she has touched thousands and thousands of times, but she suddenly realised that the top of the sugar jar had like grooves in it and patterns, and she'd never actually looked or felt the top of this sugar jar. And it might seem really insignificant, but there is such a difference between being aware that you are somewhere doing an action, and you might be on autopilot, and there's a difference between that and actually being there and actually really being in the present moment. So I just thought that was a really interesting example, that she was obviously doing an action that she's done many times. But I think often we can be doing something that is kind of mundane to us. Maybe it's like getting dressed or brushing your teeth or even bathing, making a coffee. And well, to be honest, whatever you're doing, if your mind is focused on anything else apart from really absorbing everything that you're doing in the present moment, then you're not living in the present. And it's like, I think sometimes we'll be doing an action and we'll be thinking about all the things that we've done, all the things that we have to do, maybe conversations that we've had with people, memories that we've had, just replaying scenarios or things like that. And I think it's really easy to get into the autopilot kind of mindset and not actually be in the present moment, because I feel like there's a tendency for us to be like, yes, I live in the present moment, as in I just take everything as it comes, and that's really good. But how much of the day are you actually really in the present moment? And you might think, well, why do I need to be in the present moment? Why is that necessary? If I'm just making a coffee, why is it necessary for my awareness and my focus to be fully present when it's something I know how to do and I do it all the time? Why can't my mind be used for something else? And I think being present obviously comes from the practice of meditation, and presence and being present is honestly the key and the gateway to opening up your spirituality, your spiritual gifts, and also being able to rid yourself of anything and everything that you don't need, And a lot of suffering, in fact, almost all suffering is created by us either living in the past or the present. Now, both the past and the present are actually illusory. They are illusions and they don't exist, and I will tell you for why. So, all time is simultaneous, and we're not going to get into the whole quantum times an illusion thing today. But if you do want to go more into that, I highly suggest it because it's so interesting, and I'm just a quantum physics nerd at this point. So this really helped me when I was younger, going through some stuff, and suddenly realising that the present moment is really all we have. The present moment is all that has ever been and all that will ever be. So if you think about your past or anything that was created in the past, when it was created and when you were experiencing it, it was the now moment. It was happening now. And similarly, if you're thinking about the future, what hasn't happened or what might happen or what's going to happen, whenever you actually experience that thing, it will be the now, it will be in the now moment. And even things that have been created, like buildings, say, even though they might have been created in another now moment, you are now observing those creations that matter in the now moment. And there's a kind of point where you understand that and you're like, yeah, okay, now is the only moment we have. But then there's a real difference between that and actually dropping into that realization and being like, wow, all suffering, in my opinion, is created in two ways. One is not living in the present moment. So you might be replaying scenarios from the past, as I said, or worrying about what's going to happen in the future, being apprehensive. Or the other way that we can cause ourselves suffering is by suppressing trauma and having suppressed trauma in our energy field. But that is a whole other episode. So when we're speaking about being in the present moment, if we are constantly replaying scenarios that we've gone through or constantly reliving maybe traumas that we have had, incidents, and constantly going over those emotions, basically re-feeling all of those vibrations from a previous now moment, that is usually the source of a lot of suffering. It might be anxiety, it might be feelings of depression, it might be just general worry, because what we do is we go back into a previous now moment in our mind and we then project those vibrations and those feelings into our now moment. And every time you do that, we know from the law of attraction that you receive in your experience everything that is a vibrational match to what you are outputting. And so every time you go into your past, you are then opening up new timelines with that same vibration. So say if you've had like a traumatic event in your lifetime that's caused you to be really anxious about a certain subject, and I have had this in the past as well, and you go into the past and you aside from having suppressed trauma, but that is another aspect of it, you then will project the feelings of that episode or that experience you had into your now moments and therefore into your future. And you are opening up timelines that are in correlation with that same vibration. Whereas if you just look at everything from being in this now moment, there isn't any suffering. There isn't any suffering in the now moment. And the same thing goes with projecting into the future. Now, this is where it gets kind of sticky to explain, because there's a difference, in my opinion, between looking into your future, say, which is a now that is ahead of you, but obviously all time is simultaneous, so another timeline that you're tapping into, another version of yourself, where you want something to happen. So this is where manifesting comes in, because if there's a desired outcome that you wish to experience, then we will go and we will visualize things like that, and we will visualize what might happen and what we wish to happen and what we're desirous of to happen in a future now moment. But the difference between that and not living in the present moment is that obviously, when we are projecting our consciousness into a future now moment, we aren't technically in the present moment. But there's a difference in productivity, I'd say, for your manifestations, between visualizing for manifestation, tapping into future timelines, or living your life looking into the future so that you're never actually present in the moment of creation, which is now. The only place and time where you can ever create is in the now moment. So that's why we have to create a really good balance between doing our visualization, manifestation work, and also being able to live in the present moment. And that is why I teach a lot of kind of quantum manifestation techniques where we can harness the power of the present moment whilst simultaneously tapping into those timelines and those things that we wish to manifest. So so if we're constantly projecting our consciousness into the future in terms of things that we're worried about, the thing that is mattering here is the vibration. If you're tapping into a timeline where you feel amazing, you feel magical and there's miracles, then that's not really going to do you any harm. But if you are opening up timelines on the other spectrum, where you are expecting things to recur from the past, where you're imagining things are going to go a specific way that you don't prefer, then because you are a powerful creator of your own experience, you are then opening up those timelines where those event scenarios, people are going to come into your life, and they will be things that you don't prefer. That is why it is such an important thing to be able to master our vibration and really be aware of what it is that we are emitting. So in terms of being present, when we're in the present moment, it is so much easier for us to access all of our senses, which are going to help us to create the life that we do desire. And I'm pretty sure all of us can relate to a time where we've been kind of zoning out, thinking about something that's really not relevant in the present moment, and then you kind of like zoom back in to the present moment. You're like, oh my gosh, where have I been? It feels like you've been in a different kind of reality because your consciousness has been elsewhere other than the present moment. I used to have this all the time when I was driving. If you've ever had that experience when you've been driving where you get in the car and then your next kind of conscious memory or realization is that you're at your destination. And I used to do this all the time, and I'd be like, I don't actually remember driving or getting here. And that is just a classic example of us not being in the present moment. Not that we aren't safe when we're driving, but our body kind of goes into autopilot. And that's another interesting point to make, is that because you are a multidimensional being, you can be fully functional in multiple dimensions at the same time. So you can be very proficiently driving a car and being aware of everything that's around you in your periphery and ahead of you. But also another part of your consciousness is off like living your dream life on a beach somewhere in Mexico, or and another part of you is replaying an argument that you had with someone last week. And it's a crazy thing, but that is what can happen. And that is what you do day in, day out, is that you split your consciousness. There is parts of your consciousness living in every single dimension. And it's just about tapping in to this present moment to really get the most out of your experience. Because if you are always living from the past or into the future, you're never actually enjoying the only place that actually exists, the only place in time that exists in the whole universe, which is now. It always ever has been now. Another interesting thing actually to mention is when we are visualizing for manifestation, when we are tapping into other timelines, that's where a lot of resistance can come in if we haven't learnt to detach from the outcomes. And then even from trying to visualize the things that you want by tapping into the future, we're still creating ourselves suffering, because there comes feelings of disappointment that we haven't actually realized our desire yet, that it hasn't become manifest, or frustration about the amount of time it might be taking, that things aren't unfolding how you want them to happen. And that is where it is so important to be detached from the outcomes of your desire. And honestly, what I think it comes down to, the degree that you will allow yourself to live in the present moment is directly correlated to the degree that you trust in the universe and you trust that you are guided by the divine, and that you, as long as you don't get in your own way, you are destined for nothing but miracles. And it sounds really kind of out there, but that is honestly what it comes down to. How much do you trust that you can live in the present moment and that you don't have to worry about what has been or what might come? All you have to do is stay in the present moment and prime your vibration in that present moment to be receiving of all those things and the gifts that the universe has for us. Because a lot of the times the universe is like, okay, I've got this, you've said what you want, and I've got this plan kind of loosely mapped out for you. This is the path of least resistance, and it's all wide open for you. Everything that you want is literally there, ready, waiting for you on the smoothest, most expedited route possible. And then what we do as human beings is go, okay, cool, I'm trusting in the universe, everything's coming to me. And then we start worrying, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if this happens? What if it doesn't go that way? What if I don't get what I want? And then the universe is like, okay, so now you've opened up this timeline where we're just going to introduce a manifestation of worry because you're telling me you want that for some reason. And then we basically just put stones in our path and we end up going on a twisty-turny journey. And eventually we do end up with the things that we desire. But it takes us a long time, and it might not be time that's the issue, obviously, because time is an illusion, but it takes us on a more windy journey, a less direct journey, and that is always us, it's always our doing, because the universe is infinitely intelligent, and will literally just present us with miracles. But what we do is that if we don't trust, and it is a really hard thing to do, but you have to, that's why it's so important to be in the present moment, because it allows you to tap into all of this. The flow of infinite intelligence is to be accessed in the present moment. And that is why meditation is so important, so that you can train your mind to be present. And I think a lot of people might have the perception that meditation and things like that are kind of a luxury or like a habit or a hobby. And yes, although you have to train yourself into a habit, it's a necessity in my opinion, because there isn't anything more productive you could be doing than training your consciousness to be in this present moment, because everything starts and ends from there. And there's that quote, honestly, I don't know who this is by. It might be Buddha, I'm not actually sure, that someone had asked this ascended master, what have you gained from meditation? And he said nothing, but he said, what I have lost is depression, anxiety, fear, all of those things. And it's about training your mind to be how it would be if you were undistracted by, not by being human, but by the distractions of this human physical plane and consciousness. Because if you are in a different dimension, say if you were like a ninth dimensional being, you are hooked up to source 24/7 and there's nothing that can deter you from it, because you are that light. And we are all that light. But sometimes, because we have free will and because we are in this third density dimension, we cut ourselves off from it. And it is definitely such a freeing thing to be able to adapt in your life. And it is such a huge part of my journey, and I know a few of my friends' journeys as well, is actually really like getting to know the present moment. What I found really helpful when I was a lot younger and I was suffering from some anxiety, I found it really helpful to, if I was ever feeling in a panic or a bit of a anxious state, the most helpful thing for me was honestly to list 3 things that I could hear, 3 things that I could smell, 3 things that I could touch, 5 things that I could see, things like that. It literally brings you into the present moment. So if you are struggling to know if you're in the present moment or not, just ask yourself, are all of your senses in this present moment aware of what is happening around you? Because it is like when my friend said that she had never seen the sugar pot before. She never actually really touched it and noticed it. Are you in the kitchen just mindlessly making yourself a cup of coffee? Or can you see like the grains in the wood of your kitchen cabinet, for example? Can you see the steam coming off of the kettle? Things like that. Can you smell washing up liquid that's in the washing up bowl next to you? So if you really want to be in the present moment, employ your senses. They're there for a reason. They're there to help us experience this very sensory, very dense dimension where everything is in physical form. They're there for a reason. And they are really helpful to let us know if we are in the present moment or not. And also a good way to rid yourself of any suffering you might be feeling in the now moment, which is always as a result of you projecting your consciousness into a previous or future now moment. So that's a little tip. Also, obviously, practicing meditation is a really good way to train your mind to be in the present moment. And it is such an individual practice for everyone, honestly. You can do it with music, without music. You can do it looking at a candle flame or a plant or a pet or something. You can do guided ones. You can do it when you're going for a walk. Honestly, there is no right way to do meditation. It is about quieting your mind. And this does not mean not having any thoughts. It just means having a secondary level of awareness that you aren't your thoughts and you aren't your body, but that you are the consciousness that is found in everything. And that does sound like really profound, but honestly, just meditation is such a helpful thing, and it is a very, very individual journey. So I try not to kind of thrust anything upon anyone about meditation, because you will find it on your own. It's the most natural thing that you know how to do. It is the most natural thing that any of us know how to do. And it's just about getting all of the clutter out of our mind and tapping into our heart space and realizing that, oh yeah, I do remember how to do this. So in general, some of the things that we can experience in our life when we are living truly in the present moment is that we can manifest easier and often faster, just because of the frequency that we're linked up to. If you're in the present moment, you are harnessing your power. You're really harnessing your power. Your consciousness isn't really split in it's not using energy to kind of look into the past or the future. You're there. All of your energy is present with you, and so you can manifest a lot easier. And also, you don't really experience as much worry about things. You don't experience so much self-inflicted suffering in that sense, like mind suffering. And again, it is a practice that you have to employ day in, day out, and it is quite a challenge to do, but it is so rewarding and so worth it. And just honestly, the most freeing way to live your experience. You might see that there's a greater sense of flow and ease in your life, that you'll experience a lot more synchronicity, that things just seem to go well for you. And that is because when you are linked up to the present moment, Source is working with you. Source is fully behind you because you are fully in tune with the now moment, basically. And you're not setting yourself apart from source energy. You are source energy in the present moment. Also, one of the things that you might realize is that you have such a greater appreciation for life because you actually observe and absorb everything that is around you. I mean, the fact that you're even alive in this physical density is an absolute miracle. Everything around you is nothing more than a wave of vibration, and yet you can perceive it through all of these different sensory modes. And when it sounds very kind of strange if you aren't used to living this way, but when you are in the present moment, there's such a profound sense of like magic and wonder that comes just by like looking at a wall, for example, and being like, that is a collection of vibrations, and yet I can feel it as a solid object and I can observe it with my eyes, and things like that. And we will get into the people and the states of consciousness where you can actually put your hand through a brick wall, for example, because you are in total belief that all that wall is a collection of vibration. But that is honestly just a tangent that I'm going on right now. But yeah, I think in general, there's just such a sense of appreciation that really comes when you start to access where you actually are. And noticing that there is so much beauty around you, and that you don't need to always be focusing on what you're worried about might happen next, or even what you're excited about might happen next, or what has happened, or what you wish hadn't happened. But just being here and now, and noticing, wow, like there's so much beauty around me that I was kind of missing out on, that I was not here for. And some people will go their whole lives always thinking about the future and always thinking about the past, and never really living. Always thinking about what could happen, in the sense of being worried about it. And then, one, opening up those timelines and experiencing those things, but two, maybe just not having any fulfillment in their life. And it is such a sad thing to think about, because obviously everyone has their own life path and they've all come here to experience things for a reason. But if you can really learn to just access this now, it will change your life. And it's just so simple. And I always say the most intrinsic, profound things are the simplest things, because they are just God-given. They're not supposed to be hard. They're just nature. They're natural. And living in the present moment is a natural thing. And it's the way the rest of the universe works. It's just that we have the gift of this free will, but living this human experience, that we do get